Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Aviators St. Helena, Episode 3. My name is Kabir and I'm the host on the show with Warwick. Today on the show we'll be joined by our fellow aviation enthusiast Thomas, as well as the compliance manager of St. Helena Airport Limited, James Kellett.
Today on the show we'll be talking about the most recent Titan Airways Boeing 757 charter flights to St. Helena and about the impact of COVID-19 that has led to these flights taking place. There are more Aviators St. Helena videos on the horizon, so stay tuned and enjoy the episode.
This Aviators St. Helena episode is produced in partnership with St. Helena Airport Limited. To find out more about St. Helena's airport, visit www.sthelenaAirport.com. To find out about visiting St. Helena, visit the St. Helena Tourism website at www.sthelenaTourism.com. For only 65 Rand, you can get an Aviators South Africa and St. Helena membership. Every 2 weeks, you will get exclusive members-only live streams where we will discuss a topic and discuss it in depth, but also give you a behind-the-scenes look at how we operate, etc. Some months, you will get also additional content weekly, but this varies month to month due to editing constraints, etc. Another thing you can get as a member is early access content. So you can get the public video before the public has seen it. Visit our website, the link's in the description below, to find out more about becoming a member for 65 Rand only. On Monday, the 2nd of April, a Titan Airways A318 made its way to St. Helena. It ferried critical COVID-19 medical supplies to the island, including COVID-19 test kits, PPE, medical personnel, and some residents of St. Helena who were stranded abroad. This was a huge deal, considering that the island had been closed off from South Africa as the start of South Africa's lockdown occurred.
A while later, on the 31st of July, a Boeing 757 aircraft chartered by the St. Helenian government and operated by Titan Airways arrived on the island. This was a major milestone for the airport as to date this has been the largest aircraft to successfully land at the airport.
This flight also showed that what was once cruelly named the world's most useless airport by the UK press after the British Airways Comair flight had to go around on approach before making a successful landing was actually a life-changing airport.
The flight was a repatriation flight. Many of these flights have been happening around the world. The flight left London Stansted Airport for St. Helena via Gran Canaria and Ascension Island. This posed a question. Would it be possible for a route from the UK to St. Helena? As of today, this question still remains. However, there is hope for the locals of St. Helena that this may become a reality in the near future.
Recently, the Titan Airways Boeing 757 has returned once again to St. Helena on the 16th of September. This time the aircraft touched down in St. Helena after travelling from London Stansted via Accra and Ghana before finishing off in St. Helena.
This flight, though, is very notable in that it flew direct to St. Helena with a fuel stop, whereas the first Titan Airways Boeing 757 flight had an overnight in Ascension before flying to St. Helena.
So James, would you mind telling us a bit more about what impact COVID-19 has made on the airport and maybe giving us a few more details on what we've just touched on in terms of the Titan Airways flights that have been arriving at St. Helena Island?
COVID-19 has had a dramatic and traumatic effect on international aviation, and although St. Helena remains COVID-free, the effects of COVID have nonetheless been felt on St. Helena as well. And quite perversely, those include some positive effects for St. Helena Airport, because 2020 has seen a number of firsts. In April, the airport welcomed the arrival of its first Airbus, an A318 operated by Titan Airways. And then in July, the first non-stop flight from St. Helena to Europe was operated by a corporate jet, taking contractors back to France on a Bombardier Global 6000. And then later that same month, Titan Airways once again returned to St. Helena, but this time it was with their Boeing 757. This again was a first for St. Helena Airport, the Boeing being the largest passenger aircraft to use the airport. And then finally, we had another visit by that same Boeing aircraft on the 16th of September, which saw the first direct flight from the UK to St Helena. So whilst the airport and the island has seen a dramatic downturn in aviation traffic and income from the all-important tourist industry, there has been a step change in the variety and scope of aircraft and operators using St Helena Airport in 2020.
Thanks for that, James. Very interesting indeed. But what I think is very interesting is that, you're getting, less regular flights, but a different variety of aircraft and different operators. And, they are fulfilling these flights for different requirements. It's not like the usual SA Airlink flight that is bringing tourism and passengers to St. Helena, but rather, a bit more challenging in terms of the Boeing 757 and, trying to land with the wind and, that Bombardier aircraft. And I think that's really interesting to see that, and it's great for the island because you're getting so much different aviation traffic. And I think that's really hopefully going to put St. Helena on the map as well, because there have been quite a few articles written by a variety of news outlets, aviation ones, talking about these expeditions.
Interestingly, every time Titan Airways comes to St. Helena, they are always collecting data. This assists them in training their pilots and recognizing patterns in wind and weather conditions. This shows that Titan Airways seems to be invested in looking at St. Helena's aviation future. Maybe in the near future they will provide a direct air route to the island. We will have to wait and see.
You're listening to the Aviators St. Helena, produced in partnership with St. Helena Ep.3. So we're now going to have a discussion about this Titan Airways flight, and I think it's very interesting to see how Titan Airways have adopted St. Helena on these charter flights. So this is the third flight. And interestingly, I recently saw a bulletin from SHG, the St. Helena government, stating that they are looking into an October charter flight. And so you should register your interest. So those St. Helenians who are living abroad, etc., go to the SHG website and register your interest for the flight. And this just shows that there's actually demand. If they're looking at another flight, and this flight is happening next month, it shows that something is really going on there. Warwick?
Well, I think the one point to discuss is, will there be a possible direct to the UK air route? And I think from St. Helena, this is quite possible. I know when we spoke to James and Gwyneth in our interview, which was a few episodes back, make sure to check that out. But James said that they had a flight, which was a G600, which flew, well, I think it was a G600, which had flown to France direct from St. Helena. And I think if that's possible, they'll definitely start operating flights to the UK directly. Kabir?
Yeah, I think that's true. But what I also think is possible, if we're looking at this Titan flight, this is a bigger flight, and it's carrying, the same capacity as that Airlink flight. But that's, this flight has a fuel stop. Even with a fuel stop, we know for a fact the Airlink flight direct to St. Helena has a fuel stop. But that's not like when the previous time where the aircraft overnighted at Ascension. And I think it's highly possible that we are going to see a route in the near future from London Stansted, or just definitely London, to St. Helena. And having this is great because tourists have to fly through South Africa in order to gain access to the island. And now, under normal circumstances, there's no issue with that. We've got British Airways, Virgin, and they are all flying several different flights to Joburg and Cape Town and Durban, etc. But, in COVID, I think less exposure is better. And I think this virus is going to be with us for some time. And in South Africa, where the virus is such a hot topic at the moment, and as we can see, it's already climbing as we move into level 1, we can see that, tourists are not going to want to go through South Africa, have to transit, then overnight, then wait. And so having this UK direct route is great. But I'm going to pose another question before I move on to you, Warwick. Who is going to operate this direct route? Do we think Titan Airways are going to have a scheduled service, or will it be someone like British Airways, for example? But what do you think, Warwick?
Well, quickly with regards to what we were previously talking about, with regards to how you said that currently less exposure is better because of COVID and everything, you don't want to fly through multiple countries if it's just not necessary. That's a very good point. And currently, I think there is according to going with that point, there is quite a high market for that route. well, not for that route specifically, but for less exposure. But back to your previous question with which airline do we think would operate it? I definitely think that there could be an option for British Airways to operate it. And I definitely think that even Virgin could have a shot at it if they wanted to, and they could have a try and see if they could get a smaller aircraft which can land there, and then operate a direct flight in that respect. Tom?
But sorry, Warwick, I think there must have been a connection issue on Tom's side. But while we fix that, I think it's very interesting that you say Virgin. Now, British Airways is the flag carrier of the UK. Now, St. Helena, Ascension, and Tristan da Cunha are a British overseas territory. And that was part of the reason, I think, at least, why British Airways Comair were going to be flying that route. Because it's that. But I think having BA do it would definitely happen. But now, here's the question. What aircraft would they use? How is that going to work? Because as BA's fleet renewal strategy is going on and Virgin, they don't have small aircraft. We know, like for the A319 or 18, it's going to have to make a few stops along the way. Whereas the 757 is really the biggest aircraft the airport can handle. And it's really ideal because it can take the capacity. And it's ideal because it doesn't need so many stops and can take the cargo and the people. And so that's why it's interesting what's Virgin going to do. Do Virgin really actually need to do St. Helena? St. Helena is a very specific niche market. Do Virgin want to fall into that market? But what do you think?
Well, I definitely think that a 757 could be an option depending on range and everything. But also, if you look at an option like a G600, if Virgin purchased a single G600, they could operate 2 flights a week, and they could do, say, 1 cargo flight and 1 passenger flight to the island, and that would cover basically all of the island's needs to the UK quite easily. Whereas if they bought a larger aircraft, which is more expensive and it's a much higher fuel economy, and it's also much less environmentally friendly, then they obviously will have to. They'll only have to operate 1 flight, but it will be a much more substantial flight. It will have everything on board. It will have everything which needs to go to the island or back. Bia?
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I think it's about how realistic is all of this. We don't know any of these airlines that are looking into it. And I think, sure, maybe that's an option. But I think that Virgin is not really going to want to go into that niche market. I think that British Airways may suit the role better. Or even Titan Airways. Titan Airways constantly collecting data, and they are always looking at that, and they're training pilots on their simulators specifically for St. Helena, etc. And also, I think it was the chief pilot at Titan Airways flew the St. Helena route. Why would they do that? Well, I think it's because Titan Airways are possibly looking into a route at St. Helena. We know SHG, is organizing possibly an October charter flight. Now, that's another charter flight just a month on. And that's the thing for me is, why is there so much of this going on? Is Titan Airways possibly going to express interest? But the truth is we'll have to wait and see. And what we have said today is really just our opinion. We're not sure if there is going to be a direct route, but it's definitely interesting to see. And we really hope that for the locals of St. Helena that they will get a direct route to the UK. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Aviators St. Helena. Special thank you to St. Helena Airport Limited. If you enjoyed the video, give us a like, subscribe, and enable notifications so that you'll get notified when we release a new video. There are many more Aviators St. Helena videos to come, so stay tuned, stay safe, and happy flying.